Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Aaron with Aaron Fixes Stuff. This video is going to be adding an outlet behind a TV. So in this case we mounted a TV and they didn't put an outlet over here, so what we're going to do is we're going to add an outlet. That way we don't have this cord hanging down. I'm not going to do the cable because we don't use this TV for cable. We only use it as a smart TV, so it doesn't need cable attachments. So all we're going to do is just the power. I know that some people have videos where they kind of run the power cord in the wall. That is against code. You're not allowed to run high voltage wire in the wall that way. So what you need to do to make it proper is to add an outlet behind a TV. So this video is going to address it. Let's get started. So the list of supplies you're going to need is a stud finder, a pencil, a level, 1 or 2 boxes depending on how many you need in the end, 1 or 2 outlets, 1 or 2 face plates, Romex, in this case we're using 14-2. Then you're going to need electrical tape, either a drywall knife or a multi-tool, screwdriver, wire cutters, and a utility blade. Optional supplies are going to be painter's tape, an outlet tester, electrical long nose pliers, diagonal pliers, lineman pliers, fish tape, and some sort of drill or impact driver. Alright, so the first thing you're going to do is get your kitten out of the way. Next, if you have one of these outlet testers, awesome. If not, I would recommend buying one to make sure that the power is off. So I turn the power off at the breaker to this receptacle, so that we are not working with live wires. Just makes it easier. So now that we know that the power's off, we're going to open this box. Just in case you don't have a screwdriver. Take the cover off, facing off. Our power's off, so we don't have to worry, but I have some additional help. All right. So your outlet is probably going to have one of 2 things in here. You're either going to have 1 black and 1 white coming in, or you're going to have 2. That's probably what you're going to have. You might have more in there that are pigtail to each other and they come into here. It's going to be some combination of this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to disconnect all these wires, because in our case they connect. Can you see any of this? Mm-hmm. Okay. Because in this case they connect straight to the back, you can pull them out. Oftentimes they don't come out, so I'm just going to cut all wires, and then we're just going to put a new receptacle down here and up there. And like I said before, this is all off, so we don't have to worry about it, but still better not have a kitten in your frame. We do have the main shut off. All right, so in case you don't know, our ground wire over here. And the reason we have 2 blacks and 2 whites over here means that one of them is going to be the line. So one of the wires coming in is going to be the hot, and then the second one is feeding from this one, continuing to somewhere else. I'm just getting this one ready for our new outlet we have over here. All right, so now we have all this good to go. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to identify where our stud is. So it should be, I'm assuming it's going to be over here. So we're going to use our stud finder to find our stud. So in this case, our stud is on that side of the box, which happens to work out pretty well because we want our wire to come in and go over here. So in this case, we won't have to go through a stud. If we did, we would just have to go through the stud and then up. So if we're imagining that our stud was over here and we're trying to get the wire over here, we would bring we'd fish the wire through the stud and then go up. In this case, we can just go right up over there, so that saved us quite a bit of work. So I'm going to use electrical tape painter's tape, just for the purpose of this video to show where our stud was. Here's our first one. Here's the second one. And we're going to be running up our wire right over here. So in our case, it happened to be pretty easy. Like I said, we're not going to have to drill through any studs, so that saved us some time. All right, next, we're going to figure out where we want to mount our box. Okay, so the best for our case is going to be over here, right on top of the mount. Alright, with this box, you want to make sure when you're drawing your square, don't draw these little tabs out, because if you do, obviously you're just going to go right through the wall. Next, you're going to move your cat out of the way again. Now you're going to use either your drywall knife or your multi-tool, whichever you preferred. I just prefer working with the multi-tool. It just makes it a little bit quicker. Alright, here's a little tip. You can hold on to this piece of drywall. That way if you ever need paint, you could just take this to Home Depot and then they'll match the paint for you. Alright, so next what we're going to do is we're going to replace the bottom box with a new box. So what we're going to do is we're going to pry this box out because it's secure to the stud, and we're just going to run a new box. Another way to cheat and do it, I'm pretty sure that is against code, is to just drill a hole in the box. So if we have that box, just drill a hole in it and then run the new Romex through here and then into the box from over here. And that's another option. Okay, so actually in our box we did have a spot that was not yet used. So instead of taking this whole box off, I just took out the tab and I'm gonna run my new wire in through here and then up to there. This is where your fish tape is going to come in handy. Hopefully you have one. If you don't, you can also do it with wire. And I'll explain how to do it with wire if you don't have one of these. But if you do, that's the ideal way to do it. And you're going to grab it, send it through the hole. In a second I will show. There we go. So that was the pop-out tab that I had that wasn't being used. So I'm running my fish tape in through the wall and then up to here. There you go. Right, I'm gonna send it up. And then over here, I found the end of it. And now we come out. So it's going through here and into our box. If we did have a stud, so if we were going into the opposite direction, once we take this box out, we would just drill through the stud and then do the same thing, come up. So next what we're going to do is we're going to grab our 14-2. We're going to get more than what we need. And what I find to be easiest is if you get rid of these two and you just leave a piece of your ground wire. Next, we're going to create a loop with our ground wire, tuck it back into here. Give it a good little squeeze. And then wrap with electrical tape. That way it doesn't go away. When you're doing this, try to make this as smooth as possible. So try not to have any like jagged edges. That way you have fewer things that can get caught. I always go overboard with this. I'd rather go a little bit more than a little bit not enough. Because depending on how complicated the fishing is, if it's a little bit more complex than this and it gets stuck in the middle, you can either break your fish tape or lose your connection, and then you have to start all over again. So next what we're going to do is we're going to pull it back in the opposite direction. So because this is a small one, I can kind of reach both. If you can't reach both, you might want to use a second person to help you do this. And kind of pull it back. It's going to start off pretty easy, and then when we get to here, we're going to have to play around a little bit. But here we are. And by the way, if you didn't have fish tape, you would just stick in a piece of Romex this way and then try to find your way over to a stud. So when you're pushing in, feed it in at one side. I wouldn't push it towards this stud in our case because it would be kind of hard. I would push it towards this stud. So bring it in at an angle. You'll feel that you kind of have resistance on the stud, and just continue pushing. And what will happen is the Romex will kind of climb up, and then it'll use your stud to come up. And when you get here, you just stick your hand in, stud's right over here, and you just reach out and grab it. So if you don't have the fish tape, it's not necessary. It just makes the job a lot easier. So these boxes, similar to the other ones, they have over here these tabs that you use to pop out. So we're just going to use one of them. So I'm going to take my screwdriver or player pliers or something just to kind of manipulate it a little bit. That way I can get my wire in more easily. I'm going to feed my wire in through here, get some extra slack, and then put this in, and then secure it in place. Screwdriver, impact driver, whatever you have, they all do the same thing. All right, this one side. Just don't over tighten them. Cut back the casing. All right, so now we're going to use our new outlet. So like I was saying before with these preferred outlets, they have this little tab over here that you can stick the wire in, and obviously you would peel it back, but you'd stick the wire in under like that. And then you have to do the loop, and then once you tighten it, it's a very secure connection. So I like these preferred outlets as well. For the ground, you still have to do the loop. If you have one of these, stick your wire in through here, put your finger, and it gives you a perfect loop every time. When you're doing this, always put it on the screw clockwise, because when you're tightening the screw, you want it to also tighten the wire. If you put it the other way around, it would kind of come apart when you do that. All right, now we're going to put these in. We're just going to go in straight from the bottom. We're going to tighten the screw. And remember, hot goes to gold, white goes to silver is how it works. Same thing on this side. Make sure you get a nice and tight connection. These should be closed. the way they come from the factory, they always are closed. This one's also closed. Next, we're gonna wrap up the outlet. We're gonna tuck this all in. All right, now we're gonna work on the bottom part. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna peel this back just like we did before. Make sure you wrap them and get a good connection that's not going to move over time. All right, so now we're going to create our pigtail. So we're going to take another piece of Romex, like doing about 8 inches maybe. And some wire nuts. All right, so we're going to start with the blacks. We're going to take all of them. Remember, our power is still off. And our new one. And then some people just take a wire nut now and just jam it in. And I guess that works, but the problem is that the connection that you get is not great, so I recommend grabbing your lineman's pliers or anything, whatever sort of pliers you have, and then giving it a nice twist and making a good solid connection. Then you can get rid of the tip at an angle, and then when you put the wire nut on, now you know that you have a good connection that's not going to go anywhere. When you're doing this, make sure obviously you're also working in the right direction, that you're not kind of screwing the wire nut and the wires in opposite directions. So there's one. So now we have, you can kind of see what we have. We can do the same thing over here. All right, same thing. Now we're going to peel this back. And just to make it easier on ourselves, I'm going to start kind of tucking some of this away. That way it's easier to put away when we're done. I'm just going to cut this down just because we have a ton of extra and the end was kind of not pretty. Once again, we're going to put our finger in, create our U shape, put it in. Same concept again, same direction as we're going to be screwing in. Find our screwdriver. Nice and tight. Remember, white goes to the silver connection. Tight connection. This one is closed. Same thing for here. Just put underneath the tab. All right, final step. Wrapping in electrical tape. By the way, just one layer of this should protect against 600 volts. So one should be enough. Two is definitely enough. I do two, just because. All right, now we're gonna stick this in, and then we're gonna go test it all out. You should be good to go. And now here you're gonna see why wrapping this outlet was also a good idea, because as the box gets more crowded, it's harder to keep wires away from each other, and then you can end up having contact that way. So. Here's another little tip. If your outlet is kind of at a wonky angle, you can use this to straighten it out. And now it's straight. So instead of trying to fight it, just use your outlet tester. All right, don't over tighten here. All right, so we connected this outlet back, turn on the breaker. 2 lights on the right side means that it's working properly. If that one is, so is this one, because that was all pigtailed. So if this one's working properly, this one should also be working properly, which it is. So next we're going to put our faceplates on. And I'll show you a little tip that'll make you feel like you're an expert. When you're done with these screws, they should always be facing up, down. All right, next put our faceplate. I like using these unbreakable, the preferred ones. So just like I use the preferred outlets, I also use these because A, they're larger, B, more importantly, they don't shatter. So if you over tighten it a little bit by mistake, it's no big deal. So next we're gonna put that in. And you know it's behind TV and you can't see it. We'll still stop it over there. Next we're gonna come back here. Wrap the cord around. And that's it. Well, as always, I hope you found this video to be helpful, educational, or at least entertaining. If you did, consider giving me a thumbs up or subscribing to my channel. If you have any questions, suggestions, what you like, what I did or didn't do, feel free to comment below as well. As always, I appreciate your time and have a good day.